That's right.
And is a gemologist. They put those three things together. I thought that was a pretty cool mix. And she's just moved up from south, so we've got her in this area. So delighted to present Shauna Mayben to you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Shauna Mayben, and I have been a jeweller for about 25 years now, and a gemmologist for actually only about 5 years. So, still learning a lot as you do, but I've got lots of really fun little stories about gemmology and gems, and I just fell in love with them. You know, I started off just not really caring about gemstones too much, but the more I sort of worked with them, the more I just fell in love with them. So hopefully I can share a little bit of that love with you guys today. So there I am, all young, fresh-faced there. So I started off, I didn't actually get an apprenticeship. Usually jewellers get an apprenticeship and go through a store. I didn't actually get that opportunity. Instead, I actually went through and did a uni degree, and from that uni degree, I then went on to a place called the Gem Factory. And for those that don't know the Gem Factory, it's a place in Adelaide. They have glass blowing there. They've got a wood making as well, or furniture making, ceramics, and I was in the metal department. So we worked with metal, and you can see they were sort of making a huge sculpture there with these glass forms on there. And so I was there for about three years. And my focus was really actually more on art jewellery as opposed to your sort of commercial style jewellery. And my fascination was with lockets and making these really special, unique lockets made from sterling silver, and I'd use all sorts of gemstones there. I've always been fascinated with jewellery. I love the way that jewellery can tell stories and reflect the society that we live in. And gems and jewellery sit in this interesting space between sentiment and value. So I really loved making more sentimental pieces. This is when I came back to Tasmania and I did a residency on King Island. And you can see those beautiful trees that we see everywhere. So yes, it was. I was really interested in that sort of sentiment, and I started actually incorporating things like hair into my pieces, looking at Victorian jewellery, also old photos as well. And you can see there's a lovely old photo with the hair jewellery, or the hair at the back there as well, with that locket mechanism. I was also really interested in jewellery on how it can convey value or status, and so I actually started to incorporate things like money notes in my work. Also because they're very beautiful as well. So again, I wasn't too fussed on the gemstones. That one there is probably a synthetic ruby. I was more interested in the sort of contemporary jewellery, making something that spoke. Again, another piece here, using peridot, sterling silver, and the money note, which is on the inside there. So yeah, it's really interesting the balance between the emotional meaning of jewellery and also the monetary value of jewellery as well, because we all know that jewellery is worth quite a lot, especially particular gems. This one is a funny one. I just made this one recently. This is made up of 24 karat gold Australian banknotes. I actually rang the Reserve Bank and asked them if I could actually use $50 Australian notes. And they laughed at me and said, yes, no way. It's, you can actually end up getting about 2 years of jail, and I think $20,000 fine for it as well, for cutting up money. Yeah, so I just found these 24 karat gold ones, and they worked an absolute treat. But talking about money, it was all very well being an artist and doing very arty things, but I also needed to actually make a living. So I moved from Adelaide back to Tasmania, and I started working as a trade jeweller. So I worked for places like Metallurgists, and I worked for Jai Hay Jewellers, Lover Gold, lots of different places doing repairs and remakes and remodelling, and so my skills really picked up from there. So making sort of more commercial works, that I like to call. But again, that's when you start to look at those gemstones and start to think, gosh, that's so beautiful. There's some sapphire there with diamonds. That's one piece I made for my auntie, actually. And again, just sort of more commercial style works. That's a tanzanite. Tanzanite is incredibly rare. Tanzania. Yeah, it does, yeah. And also sapphires as well, sort of working with beautiful sapphires. And so my love really grew, and I started really working in those trades. And someone said to me, oh, you should do the Gemmo course. And I thought, oh, could I be bothered? But I did, and yeah, from there I just fell in love with it completely. It's absolutely fascinating. There's another beautiful topaz there. And this was a Tasmanian sapphire, yeah, with diamonds set in 18 karat gold that I made. So not only do I do a lot of trade work, but I also teach as well. So I set up a studio in Hobart and I teach how to make jewellery, and I also take people through how to make each other's wedding bands as well. So we get couples in and they make each other's wedding bands, or they make their own if they prefer. And that was the most recent couple that just came in, both from Germany, coming over to Australia to get married here. I've sort of swung back around and I've started making my lockets again. I'm wearing this one today, so you're very welcome to come up and have a look at it. It's made with Australian pearls, so these are all Australian keshis, and the other ones are South Sea. So, and there's two places, one is in New South Wales and the other one is over in Western Australia. But I'm here to talk about the science of jewellery, or the science of gemstones. So gemmology is the science of gemstones, and it really began to develop about 100 years ago. And at the time, scientists and jewellers started encountering synthetic gemstones and cultured pearls. So as we all know, if something's really valuable, someone's going to try to copy it and try to make money. And so they were catching this out, and they started to realise that there was a lot of stones out there that weren't what they said they were. And a great example of that actually is the Killiecrankie diamond, which I'm not sure if some of you have heard about that. But they went to Flinders Island, they went to Killiecrankie Bay, and they picked it up, what they thought was a diamond, and they thought, ha, we've found diamonds. And what they did is they sent it back to England, and the gemmologists looked at it and said, it's not diamond, it's topaz. But the name stuck. So Tasmanian Killiecrankie diamonds are actually topaz. They're still beautiful, and topaz is a natural stone, but they're not diamonds. So there was a lot of these encounters with gemstones not being what they said they were. There was also a lot of cultured pearls being developed, and there basically needed to be a way when people could tell whether it was natural or man-made. Since then, gemmology has grown enormously thanks to scientific discoveries and new technology. Today we use microscopes, spectroscopes, and lots of other instruments to help us find what if a stone is real, or what the stone is. And I love it because it's kind of like detective work. It's sort of like you have to gather all the little clues and then put it all together to actually make an assumption of what it is, which we'll be showing you a little later. So people often think that gemmology is just mineralogy, or the study of minerals, but it's actually much broader than that. It connects many different fields, for example, geology to help us understand gemstones from deep within the earth, mining, about how they're found and extracted, and biology to explain some materials like pearls and coral. So yes, there's a lot of combinations and of course art as well, because really at the end of the day they are a beautiful object to be looked at. So yes, it's really a crossroad of science, history and human culture, and that's what makes, for me, the world of gemstones so fascinating. So you can sort of see all the different things that go into the gemstone. So, what are the qualities of a gemstone? And these are kind of known all around the world. They're kind of like the 3 points. They have to be beautiful, and beautiful is subjective. But ultimately, they have to possess aesthetic appeal and visual attractiveness. They have to be durable. Obviously, people want to be able to wear it, so it has to be able to handle the wear and tear of everyday wear and tear. And they have to be rare as well, because at the end of the day, we love collecting rare things. Then we've got different types of classifications as well. So we've got the mineral which is naturally occurring in organic solids. Now this is sort of getting a little sciencey, and I'm not going to be doing this throughout the whole entire talk. I can get very sciencey, but we won't be doing that. But crystalline, it possesses an order-repeated atomic structure. So you've got your macrocrystalline, which is large visible crystals, and then you've got your microcrystalline, which can't really be seen without magnification. And then we've got amorphous. Amorphous is just basically things like glass, like Darwin's glass and those kind of things. So it has no structure, really. So let's talk about crystalline. So this is a sapphire crystal. And this is how they form in the earth, which is pretty incredible. They like to call this one over here a dog tooth because of the shape of and sometimes they find them in half, so it does look a little bit like a dog tooth. We're lucky in Tassie, we get sapphire, and this we call it alluvial gravel, and that's because they are crystals, but because they've been washed and tumbled, and they start to actually become a bit more like little bits of gravel instead. This is actually taken from the website an Apple Isle prospector, and this is Miguel who's doing the fossicking there. So, and you can check him out. He keeps a blog. It's a really good blog. It's just Apple Isle prospector. But you can see in that handful, there's quite a lot of different gemstones there. We've got topaz, we've got spinel, which is black stones, and we get a lot of spinel in Tassie. We've got sapphires there as well. And we've also even got some tourmaline, which is tucked up right on the side there. It's hard to see, but it's elongated, and we do get tourmaline. It's a black tourmaline. It's not very cuttable, though. It's very brittle in Tassie, so we won't see a lot of it on the market. And that's the thing, all these gemstones have to be cuttable. So you might get a nice handful of gems like that and think, woohoo, look at this. But you might be lucky if one of those gemstones is cuttable. And that's what makes gemstones so rare. Then we've got other materials. This is the polymicrocrystalline, which is basically saying it's made up of crystals, but there are hundreds of little crystals that are sort of all packed together. And things like chariolite, unakite, and aventurine quartz. But we do in Tasmania get agate, and we get beautiful agate, and this is all Tasmanian agate. Again, this is a picture taken from Apple Isle Prospector. Thank you, Miguel. So you can see lovely and all cuttable as well. And if you're interested in cutting beautiful gemstones like this, there is laboratory clubs around the area. I'm going to plug the Burnie Laboratory Club. It's a great club to join, where you can actually go out prospecting and also cutting the gemstones as well. So you can make them into beautiful cabochons. So we tend to call these sorts of stones semi-precious rather than precious stones. But just because they're semi-precious doesn't mean they're not worth money. And a really good example of this is jadeite, jade. Okay, very expensive material. Imperial jade especially, which is actually jadeite, and it isn't just a gemstone, it's one of the most legendary gem materials in the world. Its history is filled with mystique, imperial obsession, and times of even violence. For centuries it's been treasured in the Chinese culture, not just for its beauty, but it's also for its spiritual meaning. And the finest jadeite has incredible luminous emerald green colour, almost glowing from within. And because of its rarity and cultural importance, the very best pieces are actually worth more than diamonds. And I'll give you an example of that. It looks very unassuming, doesn't it? You sort of think, oh, that's nice. So we have the imperial jade beads, and they're quite large beads. These ones are about 15 mil. And at the top is a Cartier clasp, and in that has got diamonds and natural rubies as well. So this is a famous example of a jadeite necklace, and it's owned by the Woolworths heiress Barbara Hutton. It was made by, the part of the top was made by Cartier, and it features 27 large jadeite beads. And these are very high quality jade as well. So it went to auction in Sotheby's in Hong Kong, and it sold for $27 million. Yeah. So it set a world record for both jadeite jewel and the Cartier piece as well. But yes, $27 million for that. Yes, but it is truly spectacular. It's a perfect example how the world of gemstones, rarity, history and beauty can combine to create something that's almost legendary. It's just so beautiful. And then there are cabbages. This is one of the most famous carvings in the world, and it's a cabbage. It's called the jadeite cabbage, and it's in the National Palace Museum of Taipei. And it is jadeite. And a question my husband had, he was like, well, I thought jade was green. Well, jade comes in a nice white as well. It also comes in lavender colours, so you can get different colours. Yeah, it does, and that is just the natural stone. Yeah, obviously the artist who carved this just really knew how to bring out the beauty of the stone. It's actually got two little insects at the top there as well. I don't know if you can see them. We've got a locust and also like a little grasshopper that's there as well. And this piece is only about the size of a real cabbage, but it's considered to be one of the most beloved treasures in the museum. Which goes, yeah. Yeah, small cabbage. Yeah. So yeah, the cabbage is often referred to as one of the institution's three treasures, along with other popular artefacts, such as the meat-shaped rock. So this is also treasured along, and it's, yeah, it's, well, this one is a piece of jasper that it just resembles braised pork. And if you're wondering, yes, you can actually buy something like that as well. So there you go, $314. You can jump on eBay right now. And they do call it the pork rock. And I'll just play this one for you here.
Have you ever seen a rock that looks exactly like pork belly? It really exists, and it's called pig stone. It's not man-made, but rather a product of nature's creation over hundreds of millions of years. It's primarily composed of quartzite, with minerals gradually seeping into it, creating layers of fat and lean meat. It looks like food, but feels like cold, hard stone. Pig stone is particularly popular among collectors who believe it brings good luck and fortune and display it in their homes or offices. It serves as both a decorative item and a lucky charm. An elderly man once found one in the wild. From a distance, he thought it was fresh pork, but upon touching it, he realized it was actually rock. Someone quickly offered $15,000 for it, but the elderly man refused, believing it could fetch more. Experts later confirmed it was high-quality meat stone, and it ultimately sold for over $150,000. So, next time you see a rock in the wild that looks like pork belly, don't rush away. You might just have stumbled upon a priceless pig stone.
They call it pig stone. It's pork stone. So, China. Yeah, yeah. And again, it's a type of agate, so it's a, yeah, it's, but they're just very clever to sort of shape it and make it look like pork. Yeah. Oh, of course, yes. Okay, thank you. Look, I think this is actually a really good segue into organic gemstones made by animals and plants.
Have you ever seen
there we go. So, of course, we've got the organic gemstones as well. So these are just the different categories of gemstones. We've got pearls and amber and coral and ivory and shell, and there's many more tortoise shell as well. I'm not really going to be talking about this too much, but if you did bring some pearls with you or coral or anything, I'm happy to identify it for you and tell you whether they're natural or not. So we'll go back to that defining of the gem material, which is beautiful, durable and rare. So when it comes down to gemstone materials versus minerals, there's only really about 100 that are classified into gemstone materials. So they're quite rare. And they possess a unique combination of beauty, durability and rarity. And most of the time they want to be fairly stable as well. So we'll talk a little bit about chemical composition. And this is a funny little one. So here we've got corundum. Okay, and these are corundum ruby. And they are aluminium and oxide, a chemical compound of aluminium and oxygen. But if you add magnesium to it, suddenly it becomes another element. It becomes spinel. So we all know that rubies are red. Can everyone tell me maybe what colour sapphires are? Oh. There we go, yes. And I sort of tricked you a bit here. I got you all thinking that sapphires are only blue. No, sapphires are every colour of the rainbow. You can get all sorts of different types of coloured sapphires. As you can see here, these are all sapphires. And these ones on the side here, these are actually Australian stones, and we call them party sapphires. And we're not talking like, woo, party. It's P-A-T-I, sapphires, parts of different colours. And they're just exquisite with the different types of colours that are going on there. But out of all the sapphires that are here, there is one that is particularly rare and particularly expensive. Can anyone have a guess which one you think that might be? Yep. You're not wrong. It is the Padparadash sapphire, which is a beautiful pink, but it's sort of a pink-orange sapphire. And you can see here, that's the crystal. This is how it forms in the earth. And these are the colours. But this is where it gets a bit funny with the sapphires. But I'll talk about that. So we all know that blue is the most famous colour, but sapphire occurs in all the different colours. So really the things that colour all these difference are small trace elements. So for example, a little bit of chromium gets into the crystal and it turns the crystal red. And that's what we call ruby. So ruby and sapphire are exactly the same material. It's just been coloured by trace elements slightly differently. Things like iron and titanium are the other trace elements that give blues and greens. Also yellows, and the chromiums are more the pinks.
So why is the pink just
Rare, and it's not so much the pink, it's the Padparash colour. So this is where we get into really interesting sort of murky waters where gemmologists love to argue with each other, because a pink sapphire is a pink sapphire, but a Padparash has a peachy sort of colour. They call it like a lotus flower colour. And you can see that these are the different hues. But of course, someone with a pink sapphire, if they can get a bit more money for it by calling it Padparash, of course they're going to try to do that. And it's the same with ruby as well. One of my lecturers said, you know, yes, they call it pigeon blood ruby, but was the pigeon, you know, was it killed yesterday and the blood's gone a bit dark, you know? And so there is a sort of sliding scale when it comes to rubies and red rubies, because you can get them from softer sort of pink reds all the way through to the deep dark reds. They're all rubies, they just come in different tones. So it's the same with the Padparash. But in my view, I think that probably you can get away with the top one, but the bottom one is just a little bit more on the pink side. So I'd probably call it a pink sapphire, but that means I don't have to pay as much for it. So yes, the name actually comes from lotus blossom, and it's that delicate mix of pink and orange. They're incredibly rare because they can be extremely valuable. And I'll give you an example. This Padparash sapphire, which is this one here, and I would say that's a beautiful, if you actually see it in the flesh and you see a video of it, the colour is just incredible. This sold for $2.4 million in 2017. It's about 3 carat. Oh no, what was it? It was 28.4 carats. So it's a big size. Yeah. You can, I think, get about a 3 carat one for about maybe 6 or 7, 8,000. So, but then again, they're never going to have that sort of colour. So yes, if gemmologists start arguing about colour, chances are we're talking about Padparash or rubies. But I'm not here to talk about and argue about colour. So, as I was saying, you've got the chemical composition, which is aluminium oxide, and the trace elements that are responsible for the colouring. So ruby and sapphire are from the same family, corundum, and it's only those trace elements that slightly colour it. But something can happen when you add that magnesium, and then suddenly it turns into a totally different gem material, which is spinel. Yeah, of course, yeah. And even royalty can have little whoopsie moments. So it took so this is one of the most famous rubies in the world. It's called the Black Prince Ruby in the British Crown Jewels. And it isn't a ruby at all, it's a spinel. And it took several hundred years before anyone realised the crown jewels had been slightly mislabelled. So the Black Prince Ruby isn't the only famous ruby that turned out to be not a ruby. I've got this one here as well. Another example is the Timur ruby, a spectacular 322 carat red stone that was owned by some of the most powerful rulers in history. And for centuries it was believed to be one of the greatest rubies in the world. In fact, it was so important that 7 rulers actually engraved their names directly onto the surface. I don't know if you can see it there, but they've actually engraved it onto the surface of the stone. But when modern gemmologists finally tested it, they discovered it wasn't a ruby at all. It was another spinel.
And is spinel less rare?
No, now red spinel is highly prized. So at the end of the day, if I ended up with a red spinel like that, I wouldn't be upset at all. I'd be cheering. Of course, a ruby is probably worth a little bit more, but now a lot of ruby mines have actually started to close up, so they're just not finding ruby anymore, and so spinel is kind of taking place of ruby, and a lot of people are buying a lot of spinel, and that drives the price up. So really it's just down to, yeah. Yeah, so for hundreds of years, emperors, kings, and entire royalty treasures believed that they possessed one of the greatest rubies ever found, when in fact it was something entirely else. But like you said, at least it was spinel. We're still talking about a genuine and beautiful stone, even though it was mistaken for something else. But unfortunately, not every gem story ends so well. Especially being a jeweller and working in the trades for so long, I've actually seen a lot of people who have been travelling. They've gone to Burma, or they've gone South America or Thailand or Sri Lanka, and they're in the shop and the stone looks absolutely beautiful and the price seems incredible, and the buyer explains that you're buying directly from the source, so of course it's going to be cheaper. And then the traveller returns home feeling very pleased with their purchase and takes a stone to a gemologist, and we tell them, it isn't a ruby, it isn't a spinel, it's glass. And that happens a lot. Yeah. So, something just to be really aware of, there is a lot of synthetic material out there as well. Synthetic, which I'm going to go into a little bit further along, which is made of the same chemical composition, but is man-made, not made by the earth. So, I'll quickly run through Mohs scale of hardness, because I think this is a really interesting one. It is about scratchability. So when you hear people talking about Mohs hardness, it's not actually about how hard the material is, it's more about the scratchability of it. You can see here, this is sort of what we rank it in, and this matters, because at the end of the day, with jewellers, we prefer the harder stones because we're pushing metal over the top of it. So we need to make sure, and if you're wearing it as a ring all the time, it's going to get abraded all the time. The magic number is 7 here, and the reason is because there's a lot of quartz everywhere. Quartz dust is everywhere, and so quartz scratches really easy. Quartz is 7, so it'll scratch anything from 7 down. So for example, pearls, they're not really great to have as rings, or if you do, you have to be really careful with them. The same with opal. I see a lot of people pop on their opal and just wear it all the time. They go gardening in it, and of course it damages their opal quite badly. But anything from about 7 upwards is nice, good for rings, nice hardness for rings. But there's not just the Mohs ranking of hardness, there's also toughness as well. And toughness and hardness are two different things. And you can see here that they're actually labelled differently. And toughness is more about the strength of the stone. So diamonds, great, they're 10 when it comes to the Mohs scale. They don't scratch at all, but they have something called perfect cleavage. And if you hit them in the wrong direction, they can just shear off. So there's something to know. And jade and jadeite is one of the hardest or toughest. That's right up there when it comes to toughness. I've got this cute little clip here which shows this, especially with like bangles like this if you were to hit them.
So how do I know if these are real?
If it was a bangle, if you just hang it like this and you use a quarter or whatever you like and you just bang on it a little bit slightly. So this is a natural jade, free from chemicals. You can hear the sound is nice and crisp, okay? Versus one that's not. Do you hear that? Completely different. So this is a way to tell if it's a bangle.
Which is really interesting. So jade, as you know, is very, very, very expensive, and so it's very desirable, especially in China. And they do all sorts of treatments to it. They colour it, they put resins into it, they do all sorts of alterations to it, and that can impact the quality of the actual jade. Okay. They're made in a factory instead of made in the earth. And people might say, well, what's the difference? What does it matter if it's made in a factory or made in the earth? I brought up rarity and the importance of rarity. If you've got something that's being mass manufactured, you've got something that's by the ton load. So for example, with quartz is made for industrial reasons a lot of the time, and they produce tons and tons of it all the time, every year. And when they don't have orders for electronics, they actually switch it over and start producing things like amethyst and citrine and all those kind of things for the gem market, and they flood the gem market with synthetic material. And of course, if something's flooded, it's going to drop the price of the gemstone. So they're not imitation, so synthetics are not glass. They are made of the same chemical composition as the actual naturals. Can gemmologists tell? Yeah, we've got all the technology to tell. We can tell if something's fake or if something's real. And again, the value is because they're mass produced, they're not rare. And we're seeing a funny thing that's happening at the moment where synthetic diamonds have now hit the market, and it's really changing. There's a lot of debate that's going around, and everyone's sort of going for these massive big diamonds now. They can have their 10-carat diamond for $200. But the thing is if everyone's walking around with 10-carat diamonds, it just, for $200, the desire for it sort of starts to drop. It starts to look tacky. It is a diamond, yes, yes, absolutely. So a fake diamond is just a man-made diamond, but they just make them in factories. Yeah, and it's a really interesting process. If you want to have a look at how they do it, it's fascinating. They've got lots of things on YouTube that you can have a look at, but they are not made from the earth. They can also do coloured diamonds now as well, so you can actually get different types of colours as well for a fraction of the price. But a lot of people are like, well, what does it matter? As long as it looks beautiful. And I sort of agree with that as well, if it looks beautiful. But I think there's always that, it's not real. It's like having a print as opposed to having the artwork. But each to their own as well, because diamonds are very, very durable, so they're great to wear all the time. And their counterparts like moissanite that are usually, or CZs, cubic zirconias, which are also man-made synthetic gems, do scratch a little bit more than, well, not so much moissanite, but definitely the CZ. So here we have the man-made. They're optically, so physically, optically identical to their natural counterparts. So if I was to put two diamonds, one is a synthetic diamond and one is a natural diamond, we call them lab diamonds now, so one's a lab and one's a natural, there is no way you'd be able to tell. Absolutely no way. And this was catching a lot of jewellers out as well, so we're all on Gemmologists, and so now we've got a lot of equipment to actually help us find which is synthetic and which is natural. Materials that visually resemble a natural gemstone but lack its chemical, physical or optical properties, they're structurally different, we call them imitants. So they're not made of the same material. An example, this might be a synthetic diamond, and that's a cubic zirconia, which is like a type of glass. So, how do you identify something that's glass? And this is where I'm going to give you little tips on what to look for. Bubbles. Bubbles do not occur naturally at all. So if you see a little bubble, and I'm not sure if that image is quite good there, you can sort of see these little round spherical bubbles. That shows that it is not natural at all. So as soon as I see a bubble, I'm like, straight away, I know that that material has been either compromised or that it is glass. And when I say compromised, this particular piece here is a glass-filled ruby. And what they do is they get very low-quality ruby and they inject glass into it to make it look better. Yeah. So you can also see swirl marks. There is sometimes the facets aren't very sharp, they're a little bit softer and there's a little bit more scratching on it as well. But that glass filling is to enhance the appearance. And that's a problem. It's a problem for jewellers like me. We think it's a natural ruby. We go in with our heat and we start to heat the piece, which rubies can be heated, and all the glass falls out of it. And then you've got to say to the customer, oh, I'm sorry, but your piece was glass filled and now it just looks like a cracked stone, which I will show you images of. And that's not a good thing to have to try to tell someone. So it's important for jewellers to actually understand what's happening with the stone so they can look at it straight away and say, yep, I know this is a glass-filled ruby, I'm really sorry, but this is not of high quality. And the problem with glass-filling rubies is it's not permanent. It starts to fade and chip, so there's issues with it. You can also see something else that's happening with this as well. There's a bit of a blue flash. So if you're using your loupe and you're having a look and you see a little blue flash in a ruby, alarm bells should go off straight away. That means that it's probably been glass-filled. So you can see here, oh no, I'm so sorry, I heated your ruby, and now this is what it looks like. Yep. It looked like this one before, and now it looks like this. So it's not a good process to... Mind you, you get some very nice rubies that are very big, that have been glass filled, and they look fantastic. Look at this ruby over here, it looks lovely. But again, having a look over here, we're seeing all these little bubbles that are here, and we know straight away if we see a bubble, it's not a ruby. It's glass filled, it's not. So that's one thing that they do, is looking for glass, looking for swirls and bubbles, but also they inject a lot of stones with glass to stabilise it. Yeah. About 100 years ago. Yeah, yep. Synthetic rubies have been around for a really long time as well. So that's why gemmology came around, because we were just seeing more and more things being done to gemstones. There's also composite gems as well. And these are kind of like Frankenstein gems. They're layers of other stones on top of glass or on top of synthetic material. And you probably think, well, why would you do that? Why would you make a composite? It's because they're trying to trick gemmologists. So it's almost like there's people out there that are trying to create something new to trick the gemmologists, and sometimes we do get tricked until we pick up on it, and then they go and they try to find something else again. So it's always a sort of cat and mouse game all the time. That's why I said it's like being a detective. So you can see this composite here, and the reason they do that is because gemmologists, we look for natural inclusions, which I'll be showing you a little later in this. We're always looking for those natural inclusions, and if you can put a little slither of a stone that has natural inclusions in it and you loop it, you say to yourself, I see a crystal, it must be natural, and they've got you. They tricked you. This was actually really popular in Australia. We call them garnet top doublets. Very, very popular in Australia during sort of the gold rush. And we'll see a lot of those very old antique jewellery. You'll see a lot of that. And that's a thing. I have a lot of customers that do come in and they're like, oh, this was my grandmother's, you know, she said it was a natural ruby, da 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 da. And of course, you know that those practices have been done for a long time, so you look for it straight away. So just because it's antique doesn't mean it's natural. So, treatments. There is a huge list of treatments. So I'm just going to go through some of them. Has anyone seen a mystic topaz before? Which is the second one along? It just looks like a unicorn. It's got a surface coating on it. They titanium coat it. Now the problem with the coating is it wears off. So you'll be having your beautiful ring and you'll be wearing it every day thinking how lovely it is, and you'll look down one day and it will just look white. And you won't understand why, and that's because the coating is literally just fallen off it. They do the same to topaz as well, so be very careful. Topaz gets coatings all the time. We've talked about the glass-filled rubies. They irradiate topaz. Now, this is a really interesting one. They actually bombard it with radiation, and it can actually still be radioactive, so it can burn the skin. A lot were released out on the market, and they got a little Geiger counter, and beep, 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 and they wore it against the skin and actually burnt their skin. So, yeah, they do tricky things. They're always coming out with new tricky things all the time as well. So yes, you can see all the different types of. So there's something called diffusion treating as well, which I'll talk about a little bit later. But heat treatment, and heat treatment's a funny one. We, as gemmologists, we accept heat treatments. The reason being is because it can take a very average-looking stone and make it look very beautiful, but it's a permanent thing. So once it's done, it's not going to change. It's not going to, the coating's not going to fall off, or it's not going to start lightening up. And so if it's a permanent treatment that's stable, we'll accept it. So we accept heat treatments, and we also accept oiling with emeralds, but they're the only treatments we accept. We don't accept any others. When we say accept, just we see it as a lower quality stone if it has been treated. So why do they do it? Because they want to enhance the value of the stone. That's pretty much it. They want to make it look absolutely amazing, so you fork out more money for it. And they'll do all sorts of those different types of treatments to achieve that. But there's something else you can also look out for as well, and I think that goes into the 4 C's, which is the cut. And I picked this particular stone here is because it's got something we call a window. And a window is when you can see straight through the stone. So you can see they're both topaz. I think they've been radiated because if you look at that really intense rich blue colour, they do a lot of treatments to those. But if you can see straight through that stone, it doesn't reflect that light back. We don't see that as a good quality stone. So let's have a look at spinel, for example. So spinel also comes in all sorts of different colours, by the way. Just like sapphire, it comes in a big rainbow of colours. We look for the colour. Of course, colour is desirable. The most desirable colours are reds and blues, and of course the padparash as well. But colour is really important. The clarity, of course, you don't want to see a whole heap of inclusions in there, really visible things that when you look at it, it just looks really dirty or it looks a bit strange. But the cutting is really important and very underestimated. And the problem we have is in the industry, we pay for carat. Carat is weight. If you cut it really nicely and you take all the weight off it, it's going to be lighter, it's going to look better, but then you're not going to get the amount of money you want for it because you pay for carat, per carat. So if you're looking for a gemstone, always don't look at carat first, look at cut. Cut is really important. And just to go back to that previous one, that's the difference between cut. And I'm not sure if you've ever seen a ring, you've popped it on, you look at it and you can see straight through into your finger. It's not a good cut. Good news is you can get them recut. There's some really good cutters out there. And carat. Of course, the carat weight, you pay for carat weight. So of course they do all sorts of tricky things to try to make sure they keep that carat weight on. And so you see some which have really big bases to make sure they're keeping that carat weight. So yes. So we'll go here. So clarity refers to the inclusions inside the gemstone, and we'll be looking at inclusions a little later on, or blemishes on the surface. In general, the fewer inclusions a gem has, the more valuable it will be. So the clearer it is, the better. So the thing is, though, sometimes you can get a stone for a gemologist and it can be completely clear and you can't see anything in it whatsoever. And so as a gemologist, I love seeing inclusions. I'm like, yay, I see an inclusion, it's great, because it tells me what the stone is. Sometimes if I get a very clear stone, especially like a yellow sapphire, for example, really big yellow sapphire that I had recently, it's really hard to tell a synthetic yellow sapphire, really hard. So if it's a really clean stone and I don't see a crystal or anything that sort of indicates it as a natural stone, I don't 100% know whether or not it's a natural or a synthetic. So you need to usually send them away to actually get them tested in a laboratory. So what instruments do we use to check the stones? Well, our most important one is a loop, which is like a little tiny loop, and we carry that around everywhere. And a lot of people travel overseas and they buy things from overseas. So if you've got a little loop there, you're in luck, and you pull out that loop, the person who's selling you that gemstone might start quivering a bit. Oh, maybe they know what they're looking at. So carrying around that 10, I'll tell you what, if you want to make a jeweller nervous as well, pull out a 10x loop and have a look at their work. You'll make that jeweller sweat. Of course, tweezers, cleaning cloths, because you want to make sure there's nothing on the stone that is going to confuse you what it was. And then, of course, the advanced stuff, which is the microscope, something called a polariscope, dichroscope, a Chelsea filter, a spectroscope, and a UV light. And we do use all those tools. And of course, my favourite is a refractometer, and I also love the microscope as well. But every gemologist is different. Everyone has their own particular thing that they love. The good thing with this is science. It's not just guessing. All right, so we use a lot of numerical results to make sure that it is what it says it is. So it's really nice when you put it on the refractometer. That's the refractometer there, and it gives me a number, and that number correlates to what the stone it should be. So it's great. It's a really fantastic tool for knowing exactly, because there's a lot of gemstones out there that look exactly the same. For example, if you're a fossicker and you go out and you've got topaz and you've got quartz, it's really hard to tell the difference between them. And the refractometer will clear that up straight away. What we don't use invasive things. I'm not going to get you a beautiful topaz ring and start scratching at it with a diamond to see if it's softer. We don't use any sort of acids or anything as well. So nothing that's destructive, nothing that's going to cause damage to your stone. Everything we use is very gentle for the stone. Because you wouldn't be too impressed. You take it to a gemologist and it comes back all scratched. And so, breakdown of all the tools. This is the polariscope. And this actually helps. We're sort of getting a little technical here, but not too much, but it helps us know whether it's singly or doubly refractive. Basically what happens is light hits a stone and it can either split in two or it stays as one ray. And that tells us whether or not it's a doubly refracting stone or a singly refracting stone. You heard the word amorphous before, which means no structure. Basically it's glass. So it's not made up of crystals or anything, it's just made up of just like a mishmash sort of glass. Specific gravity, I didn't bring specific gravity with me today, just because it can be a little bit funny. It's very tetchy, and so if people are walking around, it can really mess the numbers up a little bit, so it has to be really stable. And that is just finding the weight of the stone, and that will correlate with a numerical amount, and that will tell you what that stone is. A lot of people use it for gold as well, to be able to tell whether it's what it is. Yeah, and also sometimes with the specific gravity as well, we can't use things that have like a mix of different materials. So these are all sort of, we wouldn't use those because it doesn't help you when it comes to the getting the number that you need. The refractometer, which I was talking about, which I've got over there as well. And you're very welcome to sit there and watch me actually use all the tools. And even if you want to have a look as well, you can have a bit of a look through there. They're really hard to sort of see sometimes, but that gives a numerical number.
So does each stone have any specific?
That's correct. Absolutely. Every stone has their own refractive index. Some overlap, which makes it complex, but most of them, you know, you can, by doing other tests, it kind of narrows it all down. But this is one of my favourite tools to use by far. And that's what it looks like when you're actually looking through the refractometer. And you can see it's got that numerical value there. But it only works up to 1.81, and the problem with that is diamond, moissanite, a lot of other gemstones have a high refractive index, so they pass that 1.81. A lot of people love this one or either hate it. It's one of the two. This is a spectroscope. Here we go. The spectroscope is a small instrument that splits lights into different colours. It's a bit like a tiny rainbow, and by looking at which colours are absorbed or missing, we can tell what elements are inside that gemstone. So this can tell us whether it's got lots of iron in it or chromium, or it takes a lot to use this one. It's a great tool to have if you get really good at it. It can be very definitive of what the gemstone is, but it is quite hard to get used to using it. So a lot of people prefer this. They say it's like one of the most powerful tools you can actually have, and we've got little ones that we can carry around with us as well. So yeah, its spectroscope is a little bit like a barcode scanner. Every gemstone absorbs certain colours of light, leaving dark lines in the spectrum, and those lines form a pattern, almost like a barcode. So this is another one of my favourite ones, which is the microscope. And I love the microscope so much, I just get lost in the microscope. It's like looking into the stars and to the heavens. It's phenomenal, and it can just tell you so much about a gemstone. Here we have a crystal within a crystal. And you can see here it looks like a diamond crystal, and there's another crystal inside it. So if I saw that inside there, I'd go, yep, that's a natural stone straight away. One of my favourite stones, which is a dematoid garnet with horsetail inclusions. And the reason I love this one so much is we don't use the word diagnostic very often, but sometimes there's certain inclusions, and as soon as you see them, you go, I know exactly what it is, it's diagnostic. That is a dematoid garnet with horsetail inclusions, and it's come from Russia. Just like that. So you could spend 3 seconds looking at it and you're like, I know straight away. I went to Gowan's auctions, and there was one that was actually being sold there, and I don't think anyone knew what it was. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, trembling. Oh my gosh, it's a dematoid garnet. Anyway, I went to bid on it and missed out on the bid. I think it ended up going for about $300. Probably selling for about maybe $3,000 plus now. It does, yeah, sure does, yep. Because it shows, one, it's from Russia, and two, they're very, very rare stones, but it's kind of for like, yeah, gemmologist nerds, really, because everyone else would look at it and just go, well, why would you want a stone that looks like that? But for us, it's like, oh, the pinnacle of like a beautiful inclusion. What other inclusions? So this one here, this is a sapphire, and this has straight banding. And I love seeing this as well, because to me, when I see that, I go, straight away, it's a natural sapphire. I know that's natural because it's got nice straight banding through there. So it excites me. I go, oh, straight away, I know exactly what it is. I don't have to do any other tests. I've got it. Maybe I'll do a couple more tests just to be sure. But and then we've got some more banding there as well. You can see that nice and clear. Now there is a book which is just on here. It's called the Photo Atlas, and it's an amazing library of images of inclusions. So this is a good one. I mean, even if you had your 10x loop, your little loop, and you put it in a bowl of water and you have a look, if you see that straight banding there, you know straight away that it is a natural sapphire. You can even put a little light behind it just to really make sure. Needle inclusions. And this again shows that it is a sapphire because the direction of the needle inclusions, 90 and 120 degrees. So this straight away, I would say, yep, it's a natural stone, just like that, because of all those, intersecting needles. Oh no. If I saw this, I'd go, oh no. So this is a synthetic sapphire because those lines, they're not straight, they're curving. And when those lines curve, it means that that is actually made, man-made, not made in the earth. And it's because of the process they use. So they put it onto a bowl, almost like a souvlaki or something, and they spin it while dropping the aluminium oxide on it and heating it. And because of that spinning, it causes curving. So if you see a stone and it's got curved, and I know it's very subtle, I know you're probably sitting there going, what, I can't see, but you can definitely see they're just those curved. The worst part about this stone as well is at the top there, that's actually got natural sapphire on the top of it. And they're doing that to catch people out because they'll look at it and see an inclusion and go, oh, that's a natural stone. I see needle inclusions, that must be a natural, but then you drop the rest of it into water and you have a look and you can see the curving there. So you know they've actually glued two stones together. What do we think, everyone? What are they? Bubbles. Do we think that that's natural? No. Bubbles, no. So this is actually, again, a synthetic stone. So with sometimes the process of making them, they do end up with bubbles in them. And this has also got the flux in it. So when they've got it on the bowl and they're dropping down that aluminium oxide, and the flux, that's the flux that they're using. And that gets trapped in the stone. Then we've got this one here. Oh, I see a beautiful feather inclusion in there. It must be a natural stone. But what's going on with this blue dot here? Well, this is a treatment that they do. It's diffusion treatment. And with this treatment, they heat it up, which is fine to do, but then what they do is they put a beryllium onto it, and the beryllium changes the colour of the stone. And the problem with that is it's not stable. And they started to do this for the pad parash sapphires, because look at that colour. And so suddenly all these pad parash sapphires were available on market, and everyone was like, oh, this is incredible. They must have discovered a new mine. This is wonderful. No. They worked out how they could use beryllium to actually coat the sapphire, which is a deep coat. It goes deep into the sapphire. What you ended up with is these weird little blue dots in there. And so that's what gives it away. As soon as we see that blue dot, ooh. Well, why does that matter? Like if it's still, is it stable? Not really. But if you were to cut that sapphire again, it would end up being a white sapphire, not a pad parash sapphire. Ooh. Now, can anyone remember what this was? That's the one. You get a loop. Well done. I've got a loop there for well done. Yeah, that is a glass-filled ruby. Why? We've got the bubbles, and we've also got those little blue flashes that we see. There is a lot of glass-filled ruby on the market, and it's just really good that you know about it, because if you're buying something really beautiful, you don't want it to be, bastardized like that. I love seeing things like this, natural, lovely crystal inclusions. They're not bubbles, they're crystal inclusions. So they're not round. Bubbles are perfectly spherical. You can see they're like a little sphere. When you see these kind of guys here, they're actually crystals that are trapped in there. And so and sometimes if you're really clever, you can actually identify what the crystal is as well. I have a beautiful specimen that was found on Cape Barren Island because my parents lived there for a while. It is a garnet trapped inside a piece of quartz. And it's quite big, and you can see the inclusion straight in there. So I'm going to pull it out and I'll put it on that little black thing there so everyone can have a look. And you'll see that beautiful garnet inside the quartz. And my dad called it "Be Still My Beating Heart" because it actually looks like a little heart, and it's red, and it's really lovely. So sometimes the conclusions are gorgeous. Can you tell if something's been heat treated? Yes, absolutely. This is a sapphire that's been heat treated. And what you have is this like little kind of, almost like looks like a little explosion that's happened inside. So obviously they've heated the sapphire to get good colour out of it. And then what's happened is there's another little crystal in there that's kind of split a bit because of the heat and caused that little bit of stress fracture. So yes, inclusions tell us a lot about a stone, whether it's good, bad or ugly. And here's a nice little array of different types of natural inclusions. We've got a little crystal inclusion. These are needle inclusions that are in here, and this actually causes like a star effect on the stone. So while gemmology gives us the tools to understand gemstones successfully, the real magic of gems is the way humans have valued and treasured them for thousands of years. They carry history, culture, wealth, memory, and sometimes a little mystery. And perhaps that's why we continue to be so fascinated by these small bits of earth that have the power to hold such big stories. And that concludes the talk. If you're interested in learning more or being a gemmologist, get in contact with the Gemmology Association of Australia. We do run also short courses in Hobart as well, like weekend courses if you're interested. They're actually starting to go online now, and they're starting to do online courses. They've got an opal course, so if you're particularly interested in opals. It is very scientific heavy. I tried to make everything very light today, but it does go into things in quite depth, but it means you have a really good understanding of what the stones are, what you're looking at. And if you're wondering about opal, yes, they make synthetic opal as well, so don't be caught out with synthetic opal. They make a lot of different stones. What was it called? Yes. Yeah, the diamond. Yes. Yeah, amazing, isn't it? Incredible stories that are out there about power and greed and, but also love. There's a lot of love stories out there as well, which are connected to gemstones. Absolutely. Yep. Yes, the roadshow and also things like the opal miners. I don't know if anyone's seen those. So for a while there, it was really naughty. De Beers actually came out and started spreading a rumour that opals were bad luck, and I'm sure you all heard that. We don't want to touch the opals; they're bad luck. Anyway, that's not the case. So a lot of Australians didn't really like opal, and we're sending a lot of our opal overseas to places like Japan and China and other places because we just weren't buying it. But thanks to the opal miners, the guys that are on the shows, there's been a huge resurgence of people being really interested in opal, which is great. So yes, Antique Roadshow, opal miners, and I think even the gold shows. There's a couple of guys who are on YouTube as well. I think Tassie Boys Prospecting. They've got a really good following, and they've really made prospecting and gold hunting or sniping. I think it's sniping, popular again. So. I think so. I'm not sure. Does anyone know? Yeah. I mean, it's very dramatised, it's very over the top, but it is fascinating. It's a fascinating life. Opal miners are incredible, and they have, yeah. Yeah, it sounds like an opal miner. Yeah, for sure. Oh, to make, I've got a card there, yep, so, but thank you, yeah, thank you, that's lovely.
But after the break, Shauna's going to do the showing the stuff here, but also evaluating the tools. Never please, but hang on, put your hands up as how many people have all something that like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay.
Brilliant.
About 10, that shouldn't be too many.
No.
But we'll make sure we can take it. We'll be moving this across so that that can be the video as well. So yeah.
Yep, and I've got all the books just at the front here. Please help yourself. Like, you're very welcome to have a look at the books. I'll pull out some of those gemstones that I was talking about as well, so you can have a look at them. I didn't really talk about UV, but I'm going to pull out some stones as well that have a very strong UV reaction, which is another little diagnostic tool for us gemmologists as well. And so you can have fun actually seeing the UV stones. They are a good one for that. Thanks. Thank you. And here's a really good example of how sometimes there's one test you can do that's diagnostic, like straight away, or not diagnostic, but you can sort of just split them up into different groups. So you can see here that nothing's really happening when I'm doing that. But if I put it on the ruby, so that's a garnet. So they're both red stones, and straight away I can separate two red stones by putting the UV light onto it. So I know straight away, oh, that's a ruby. I don't know if it's synthetic or a real ruby, but I know that that's... Yeah. All right, so who has something they'd like to... Ah, perfect. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is...
Sorry, can we not have you in front? Because we need the video to be on Shauna.
Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to put it on my polariscope, and I'm going to find out if it's singly or doubly refractive. Now the good thing is glass is singly refractive, so I know that if it flashes on and off, it means it's doubly refractive, which means it's a crystal. And we're like, yes, okay, it's not glass, it's a crystal. And sure enough, as I'm spinning it around here, and it's really hard to see, I'm not sure if, but feel free to have a squeeze over here, you can see it's flashing on and off. So straight away I know it's doubly refractive, which means yes, it is a crystal. Good. We're a good place to start. So now I'm going to have a quick look at it under the microscope, and I'm going to see if I can see any nice inclusions in there. But with topaz, I'm guessing it's topaz. With topaz, it's very, very clean most of the time. And sure enough, it's very clean. Which makes it difficult because I don't see any inclusions, and I'm like, oh, okay. There's no crystal inclusions, there's nothing like that. So this is where I'm going to use my refractometer. And this is going to give me a numerical value, and we use this one that's called the Constance book. It's brought out by the Gemmological Association of Australia. They update it every now and then. And this has got everything from your refractive index, don't worry about birefringence or anything like that, but it's also got the specific gravity on here as well, which, like I said, I didn't actually bring that with me. I need to use a liquid to make sure that there's contact between the gemstone and also the prism glass. This is actually toxic, so it's not great to get on the skin or anything like that. It has a very, very particular smell as well. It is, I'll actually say what it is on here, methylene iodine and I can't even pronounce it. Treacherous, yeah, exactly. Yeah, it has a very strong iodine smell. So what I'm going to do is I pop it on here. I put the tiniest little drop on here. And I place the gemstone over the prism. And just so you know, it doesn't damage the stone. This is totally fine for the stone. It just wipes off and it's not a problem. Close this one down here and I have a quick squeeze. And I'm reading at the moment 1.6. 1.61, yeah, 1.61, 1.62. So I'm going to go to my table here. Once upon a time, people had to memorise all of these for the tests. And they said, no, we're not going to do that anymore. I was like, because there's no way. But you have to memorise a lot of stuff. And sure enough, I'm having a look at my constants table here, and it's saying 1.629 to 1.637 is topaz. So there we go, it's a topaz. Yeah, absolutely. And the nice thing with topaz is they don't produce synthetic topaz, but they do treat topaz. But by looking at it, by just having a look at it, it's got a nice soft blue. When they treat topaz, it tends to be like really blue. So you can get really good topaz that's blue, but yeah, a lot of the time it's been treated. There we go, there we go.
And Mark gave me that when he proposed.
Ooh. Okay. Oh, sorry, here we go. So to me, I think it can be very dangerous to just look at something and go, oh, I think it's that, because it can put preconceived ideas in your head. It's almost like, like being a detective. You don't want to just assume straight away it was the husband, You've got to sort of have no preconceived ideas, because if you do, you can actually start to skew the information that you get to what you think it is. And you've got to be careful with that.
So describe that.
So what we're looking at here is a gold ring that has a blue stone in it. And it's a faceted blue stone. So I'm probably going to have a look. It's difficult for me to actually put this into my polariscope and have a look, just because it's actually covered at the back there. So I'm just going to pop it under my microscope and have a look and just see if I can see any nice inclusions. Might just fix this up a bit.
Video coming down.
Ooh, yep. Very nice. So straight away, I'm looking at the microscope and I can see a feather-like inclusion and needle inclusions. Needles, yeah. Needles, needle-like inclusions. So when we say feather type inclusion, it kind of looks a little bit like a feather, and then little needles in there. So to me, straight away, I've gone, that's natural, whatever it is, because it's got those lovely needle inclusions in there. But now to find out what it is, back to the refractometer.
So now that you're going to have to proof a minute, tell us what you think it is.
I think it's a natural blue sapphire. Yeah.
Well, it is now. Annalise is dead, so I guess it is. As I say, I don't know.
Yep. So with the, this is wonderful as well, with the polariscope, we can tell whether it's, sorry, not the polariscope, the refractometer, we can tell whether it's singly refractive and doubly refractive, and the polariscope is telling me, sorry, the, getting myself all mixed up here. The refractometer is showing that it's doubly refractive, which is good as well, which means it's a crystal for sure. And it is showing the number 1.77 and 1.78. So we go to our table here. We're going to go down here to 1.77. And sure enough, sapphire. Yep. We wouldn't be able to do a specific gravity test here, and the reason is because there is gold with it. So the gold weight would sort of like play around with that.
Well, I nearly ripped the stone out and sold the gold.
No. And I'll just have another quick double check just to make sure. No, don't do it. It's so beautiful. It's a beautiful sapphire as well. Yeah. Lovely natural sapphire. Well done. It's very pretty. Really good colour as well. So very desirable colour. And I can also see that there is some fantastic little needle inclusions in the corner as well. So yeah. So that sapphire is actually a really good quality sapphire. Yeah.
Good, I lost one sapphire.
So.
I lost my mother's sapphire.
These ones? Yeah, I would. Yep. Had the beautiful little intersecting needles. Beautiful. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a really good quality sapphire. This is the thing as well, like a lot of people think, oh, I want to sell my piece, and they go to places like Cash Converters or Adelaide Exchange. Don't do that. They don't actually even look at the stone. They just look at the gold weight. Yeah, which is really sad. So you're better off just getting it valued by a valuer and then putting it onto like Gumtree or something like that. Especially a beautiful sapphire like that, that's worth a bit of money.
You put it on Gumtree.
Oh, or no, with a evaluation. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you very much.
That's all right. But natural, beautiful natural salon sapphire. It's really hard with stones like this sometimes because you can't really put it onto refractometer. So I see a spherical round bubbles. But I'm glad you all know what that means straight away, which is great. So there you go. So glass. There you go. We go. Look at him. Oh, this one's going to be a good one. But there you go. Yep. So just to know what you're doing, crystals, when you put them up against your cheek, and maybe try it with this one, they should feel really cold. Glass, when you put it up to your cheek, feels a bit warm. You kind of have to get used to the sort of knowing which one, but if it is, that's just one. It's a quick way of knowing. So if you pop it up to here, let's say you're out and you're actually fossicking, and you pick up a bit of brown something, and you're like, I wonder if this is a zircon. If you put it up to your cheek and you feel it, and it's a bit warmer than a usual crystal, it's probably a piece of glass, maybe a beer bottle or something that someone's thrown in there. Which happens, and then it gets tumbled around, and then it looks like it could actually be a stone. So never assume just because you're pulling it out of a river that it is what it is. So yeah. Yeah, that's a good idea. Please do. What will happen though is as you pass it around, it's going to start to warm up. So, but it's a good way of checking. If it's really just hasn't been put up against the cheek, you'll know straight away. It's not diagnostic though. These are the things you can do. Little tiny tests like this that just make you go, I wonder. All right, so I put it on the polariscope and it's not flashing on and off, which means it's singly refractive. So you could go, oh, it could be glass, but the good thing is there's a lot of stones that are actually singly refractive. Garnets are one of them. Diamonds are singly refractive. So there is quite a few stones. But straight away, that narrows it right down to me to just like a handful of stones. Because if it's singly refractive, I know it's got to be. So I'll pop it under the microscope and have a quick squeeze. It is, yeah, absolutely.
Except for the accents. Jolly good. Jolly good.
I think the only thing is I couldn't give you an actual value. I think people like to actually hear the value of what they're worth.
They all say though, oh, that's good, but I wouldn't be selling it anyway.
Yeah, that's it.
I did a valuer's course years ago as well.
Oh, did you?
I just decided too many possibilities of litigation. And their office said, try not to do opals or pearls.
Yeah. Valuing is really hard because it is very subjective. And so I think the problem that a lot of people have is, they take it to a valuer, and some valuers like to value high and some like to value low. So I'm not 100% sure yet. So I've just put it under the microscope, and what I saw was something that looks long and slender, like a long, slender bubble. But because it's long and slender like that, I'm like, I'm guessing glass, but then they could be crystals. So I don't want to make that assumption straight away and say, well. So what I'm going to do is put it onto the refractometer. And we'll do a little test on there. Now sometimes the top of this is actually, it's rounded. Oh, no worries. So it's actually rounded on the top, and what can happen is it can give a really hard reading. So what we do is something called a spot reading, where we sort of sit back a bit and we pull our heads around here. Yep, that's, it has to have the eye closed. Come on. Oh, I can't see it through there. I'm going to try. No, it's not giving a good reading. We'll try a different part of the. We'll try another stone. The thing is, they all had the same cylindrical, long, slender, I'm not going to call them bubbles or crystals, inclusions.
That'd be unlikely, wouldn't it, in the series of stones that are the same?
No, sometimes they do. Oh, here we go, this is good, this is good. 1.765, all right. Yeah, we'll just have a look at glass just quickly. So glass has a higher range, which is 1.51 to 1.8. I'm leaning towards glass, but I would probably do a lot more tests. Yeah, so I'd probably actually sit there and really look at it under the microscope properly, really bring it up so I can have a good look. But yes, at this stage, I'm going to lean towards glass, but I'm not saying it is. So I'll have another look at it another time with a bit more time. Yeah, yep. Oh, thank you. Ooh. So first of all, when I see a red stone, immediately I want to put it under UV. Woof, look at this. Can we all see that? Straight away. Okay. Okay, so when I pop it on there, it means it's having it's having a reaction with the ultraviolet light. Okay, so then I know straight away, well, I just know that it's probably not glass and it's not garnet. So I know straight away they're not garnets and they're not glass, probably. To me, I start leaning towards, well, they're probably rubies. But if they are, I'm going to have a look and see if I can find. Now, the problem with some gemstones is they have been worn and loved a lot, and they're a bit scratched and abraded. So it's hard to tell. The good news is I see no bubbles, but I do see something there. Let's have a look. Now, just because I've had a look and seen something in one of them doesn't mean that all of them are going to be rubies, because sometimes they actually mix them all up as well. They're a bit naughty like that. Yeah, and sometimes people just say, oh, look, just chuck in a cheap one, and then they just put us in. Well, I can tell you that the diamonds are definitely natural, so that's nice. So they've got lovely little inclusions in them, little crystal inclusions. Because there's so much abrasion, it's very hard to see. I do see one tiny little inclusion in there. I'm going to lean towards, just because I think I can see a little crystal inclusion, natural ruby and sapphire and diamond. There we go. Yeah. That's always nice, isn't it? Yeah.